Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Today we are joined by two very special guests, Anna Tierney and Julian Bailey, who are currently starring in Three Pines, streaming now on Amazon Prime Video. Guys, thank you so much for being on our show and taking some time out to talk about the show. How are you both doing today?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, John.
It's a, it's
Anna,
a,
I'll let you go first. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm doing good. Yeah, thank you so much for having us on. It's fun. This is my first chat with Julian on an interview. How
Oh,
exciting.
and the way this
Yeah.
kind of, we should tell people, the way this kind of worked out is Anna was originally scheduled, and then I got an email that Julian is available. So I'm like, you know what? I would love to have the dysfunctional married couple together. Let's get them both
Yeah.
on the show to discuss the Morrow family dynamics. So, Anna, let's go ahead and start with you. In the latest two episodes, we get a really deep look into the Morrow family dynamics to which you married into. Um, Anna, I'm sorry, Clara, your character, is in a very difficult situation. She has her husband and the loyalty she feels to her husband while you're playing family politics with your in laws. How did you first interpret the Morrow family dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, my first experience of it was reading the novel, the Murder Stone, which these latest two episodes are based on, and yeah, you really, I think for me and through Clara's eyes, you really feel for Julian's character, Peter. You know, his family is a real piece of work, and as we approach Christmas time, I'm sure we're all like very acutely aware of like family dynamics. And if there was ever a family dynamic to be terrified of, it's Peter's
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
Laura's.
Dysfunctional is definitely an understatement. Now, Julian, when we first
Mhm.
meet Peter, you come across as this smart ass artist. And then we got the taste of your backstory. Is Peter still learning how to deal with his family and the dynamics behind it?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. How to deal with his family and the dynamics behind it. Yes, I mean definitely learning to deal, but also learning to cope, I would say maybe would be the word. To just cope and I think he's at the point where he's accepted that his family is what it is.
Hmm.
And so it's a question at this point of coping, I think, more than necessarily just trying to not that you were implying this, but more than trying to improve the dynamics with his family. I think it's really just about avoiding and then coping when I find myself or when Peter finds himself in a situation where he has no choice but to face his family. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that.
Now, Anna, in your opinion, what keeps Clara with Peter? She could very easily walk away from Peter, the family. Is it just real, true love? Because we do, as at least from my perspective, I could sense that you two really love each other. Okay, and that commitment is there. How do you view it? What keeps Clara from walking away from Peter?
Well, I think this is something that's really explored in the novels by Louise Penny. Their relationship gets explored in even more depth than it does in the show. And there is real love between them, and both of them very different. And I think maybe it's a case of opposites attracting.
Mm-hmm.
And she finds him also really handsome in the books. That she talks a lot about, or she thinks a lot about, how gorgeous her husband is, and I think she has a lot of self-doubt about herself actually in the books. So I think there's a lot of doubt within Clara, and Peter is someone who really, I think, makes her feel, even though we don't always see it, feel better about herself.
Uh-huh.
She knows that he really loves her, but sometimes he just gets a bit jealous. And I think I think as women, that's something that I could kind of relate to, is the sort of, maybe a boyfriend or a partner being jealous of your success, maybe. I think we've all experienced that in different parts, like throughout our life. And
Absolutely.
like I could really empathize with Clara in that sense. So I think that's something that I was exploring a lot in within the kind of realm of the show, is her, yeah, her own self-doubt, and I think finding strength within the relationship, but also working against that jealousy. It's a difficult thing, and you always want to believe that your partner, you want to believe the best in your partner, and sometimes it's a waiting game, and maybe it doesn't, ever happen. But I think,
Exactly.
you really hope that for Clara and Peter, there's some kind of breakthrough in terms of that jealousy, and yeah,
As we're
pushing through.
learning more about the characters, I find myself rooting more for you guys than I did initially in the earlier episodes. Now, Julian, there's a very powerful scene in these last two episodes where your father passed away and you guys are all gathering to scatter the ashes, and you just go and try to find a chair for your wife. And the mother, the matriarch of the family, very harshly tells Peter to sit down. We're about to get started, which sort of leaves Clara feeling like an outsider. I know I would be feeling as an outsider if I was told that, but you obeyed your mother's commands, and we sort of see the shame on your face and the letdown in Clara's face. How powerful of a moment was that for those two characters?
I'm glad you brought that up. That was actually a scene that I liked a lot because it said so much with so little. When you're adapting a novel like Louise Penny's incredible novels to the screen, you only have, let's say, uh, about 115 pages of a screenplay to adapt,
Yeah.
485 page novel. So we have to communicate a lot with a little. And that scene really says so much. It was powerful for me in the sense that, it's just putting on display the fact that I really haven't broken free from my family yet,
Hmm.
truly. And I think, you can retreat physically to the country or whatever your physical sort of escapes are or vices may be. But, have we escaped internally? Have we escaped in our souls or our minds or the ties that bind us, and so that was a great moment. I'm so glad they included that in the show. Um, and yeah, I think the way they executed it was really just really well done.
You're absolutely right. A lot is said, not with dialogue, with body movements, reactions,
Exactly.
and whatnot. Now, Julian, we also find out that Peter is holding on to a secret that we, as the audience, still don't know what that secret is. Do you think his fear of that secret coming out is a fear of it hurting his marriage, or a fear about the family and maybe shaming the family? If you can, we don't want you to reveal any spoilers moving
Sure.
forward, but what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I think, when any human being builds their life on a foundation that has cracks in it, which I mean, to an extent, I think we all do inevitably.
Yeah.
Um, there are these, taboos or secrets or whatever you want to call them, um, which can, have us by the ankle, as it were, and you try to progress in your life, kind of like what I was saying in the last to your last question. So the fear there, the insecurity there, is definitely real. And what's it about? The marriage or the family being disappointed? I mean, I think, in my mind, my character's life is on a trajectory. Hopefully, he hopes
Yeah.
to away from the family and to build this own life with Clara. So in that sense, the fear would more be about or linked to the potential downfall of what he's trying to build moving forward. But then again, when you're still tied to family like that
Yeah.
in your soul, who's to say that it's not also about some disappointment or some disapproval from the family. So, I mean, I'll leave that up to the audience to,
Yeah.
come up with or decide. But I think it could be any one of the any one of the above. Yeah.
Now, Anna, we get a sense that Clara knows that Peter is hiding something. Uh, she doesn't know what, but when you think that your husband, wife, partner is hiding something, and it's so critical for them to keep that hidden, as a person, the worst possible thoughts must be running through your head. If you put yourself into Clara's mind, what is she thinking? What is she thinking that Peter is keeping from her? Is it an affair, another woman? What do you think is going through her mind?
Yeah. Well, we discover a little bit of what Peter's keeping from her in these latest episodes, 5 and 6, but I think there's a lot more underneath the surface that gets explored in the novels, and that we'll hopefully get to see in fingers crossed, in another season. I think, I mean, if I was in Clara's position, I like to think of myself as being quite an intuitive
Mm-hmm.
person. And
Mm-hmm.
if I see that something's going on, I'll usually persist until, that person just sort of talks about it and like relieves themselves of it. So the fact that Peter is able to hold on to this stuff for so long and that she doesn't coax it out of him, I wonder, maybe part of her is afraid of what might come out if she really finds out the truth. Does he maybe not love her as much as
Yeah.
she hopes he does? And I think maybe it's a kind of fear and a lack of trust in herself at
Yeah.
this point, that she is maybe not pushing him as much as she should. And actually, there's a scene that we filmed that isn't in the episodes 5 and 6, where you see her push back at him, and I think that was a really great moment. Maybe we'll see that moment come in kind of future seasons and episodes. But Clara's strength, I think, is something that will grow in time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Now, Anna, staying with you on this, I mean, Clara undoubtedly is a highly emotional character. How does Clara compare to some of the other characters that you've had to play on screen? Is this by far the most intense character emotionally that you've had to portray?
Hmm. I would say so. And I think we've been very fortunate with these characters and with these storylines, that we're going to get a really incredible arc with them, which doesn't always happen. And yeah, she is someone who leads with her emotions on the surface, and I think that's probably me as well, to an extent. I'm maybe not as emotional as I used to be. I'm able to tame it a bit more now. But I again, that's something that I could really relate to with Clara, those emotions being right there. And I think she's also very perceptive as well. And that's something that she shares, I think, with Gamache, and we see that explored throughout these episodes, that they seem to see things in other people that they don't see in themselves, and that's something that she then explores in her artwork. And yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, as a viewer, the way Clara stands out from the rest of the town of Three Pines is that she wears her heart on her sleeve. You know what I mean? She's authentic. She always is trying to do the right thing. And that's why I think a lot of people can relate to Clara. Now, Julian, do you like the opportunity that Three Pines has given you to sort of flesh out a character, as opposed to maybe some of your other roles where it might feel rushed? You get your time to really develop the character of Peter Morrow.
Oh yeah, I would say love, not like. I'm totally, grateful for the opportunity that I have with this show and with this character to do exactly that. To stretch my legs creatively and yeah, have a chance to to build something. I mean, life is complex, and people are complex, and if you try to boil it down to just you know uh, one episode or a short recurring arc on a show or whatever, they can be tricky, especially if you're not really like part of a main cast, or you're
Yeah.
not the guy or whatever. It can be really tricky because let's say you've probably looked at my resume. I've done a lot of guest stars and sort of rather short recurring arcs on shows and things like that, or supporting roles in films and things like that. So yes, I'm totally grateful and love the opportunity to sink my teeth into it, dig my heels into the material like this. Absolutely.
Now, Anna, before filming began, and you had an understanding of what the producers and the directors wanted of Clara Morrow, what were some of the elements to the character that you wanted to inject that were very important for you and your interpretation of Clara?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think there are some differences between the novels and what we have on screen for the character. Like in the novels, which I immersed myself in before the audition process came about. She's constantly got food in her hair, and she's really scruffy and very unaware. And it's something that just wasn't written into our version for the
Mm-hmm.
screen. And I think, as fun as those little things are, and maybe we'll see them emerge in future when she's really getting into her artwork, I think that you didn't need it. I wanted to be able to show her kind of her self-doubt and her struggles with finding her strength and her voice and asserting herself. I think I wanted that to come from within
Mm-hmm.
and to be a really deeply felt thing. And it's not something that people who just look messy experience. It's something that we all experience, that really acute self-doubt and just fears about can you be yourself in the world, and can you put yourself out there and be accepted. And so I wanted to, it was really important to me to convey that. And yeah, and I think her empathy and the fact that she sees the good in people, and I think that's a theme in the show as well. So that was important for me to keep that theme going when there's all this kind of darkness happening around them, is that she's really always trying to cling to the good in the world and see the best in people. And
Yes, yes, I completely agree. Now, Julian, having Peter and Clara being such a vital piece to this show, and your relationship had to be portrayed realistically, not as this fantasy fairy tale romance couple, but as a couple who's experiencing a rough patch in their marriage. Did you guys have to do some chemistry reads together before casting was finalized to make sure that everything was clicking properly?
uh, well, insofar as you can gauge chemistry over Zoom, yeah, we did over a Zoom audition at that. We did. I guess was it just one time, Anna, that we read together?
I
Once or twice?
I think it was just once, but what was interesting for me is I was cast as Clara, and then I had to read with a few different Peters, and that was a really interesting experience, being on the other side of that, and seeing all these potential husbands who were all brilliant, but ultimately Julie. I'm so thrilled that Julian is Peter, because
Yeah.
as just a human, Julian is the best. And we had a really great time after the audition process. Once we'd been cast, we had to, I guess, figure out our chemistry then, and who are Clara and Peter. And we would talk about books that we thought maybe the characters were based on and inspired by. Like there's other Canadian artists that we had read about, and we went to a gallery together. And Julian was the perfect person to do all that with, and I don't know if I would have had that with another actor. So I'm really, really grateful that it turned out the way it did.
So are we. Sweet. Now, we're almost out of time, but Julian, I want to throw this question to you. When you approach a new character and there's source material involved, Sarah Booth was my guest last week. I asked her the same question as well. Is your preference to go in getting very familiar with the source material, or do you like going in with a blank slate and develop the character from the script and within?
Okay, well that's a good question. I think I think I mean, first and foremost, you have to honor the script that you have to work with.
Yeah.
But since there was source material in this case, if I'd have had time, see, I'll just say this: I was cast rather late in the process and rather close to our commencement of our principal photography. So I didn't necessarily have that much time, and I'm not exactly, the fastest reader in the world. I really take my time when I'm reading, especially a novel fiction. So I didn't have a lot of time to dig into the books, and I will say that I started to, and then noticed a couple of things that I thought, and we'd already started rolling at that point, and I didn't necessarily want to get too in my head about some of the differences.
Yeah.
And I mean, Anna can attest to the fact that there was a couple physical things that I noticed. I hadn't. Oh shoot. Sorry.
We can see you. You're fine.
Am I back? Okay. Sorry. I got a notification. And anyway, so yeah, just because of, that whole kind of dichotomy of like, well, but the books say, and the novel says this about Peter physically, and some of those things to draw upon something that Anna said earlier, to bring the essence of the character rather than, working from the inside out, rather than going, oh, well, let's see, it says he's always clean shaven and he always wears glasses, but we've sort of decided to have a 5 o'clock shadow and no glasses. What do we do? Can we adopt the glasses later or whatever? I really had to sort of let that stuff go and just say, what drives this guy? Who is this guy? I tried to do that. And I think, thanks to Anna and a couple, other people I talked to about it, I was able to just sort of let that go and say, look, this is an adaptation. It's not a translation or a transliteration, an exact carbon copy. And hopefully people can, fall in love with our characters and love both, at the same time.
And I just want to thank you guys so much. You guys are brilliant in the roles of Clara and Peter Morrow. These last 2 episodes were about your family. Clara, poor Clara being drawn. I feel so bad being drawn into that family. Oh my God. I want to thank you guys for sharing your time. Again, for everybody, the show is called Three Pines. A new episode is dropping tomorrow. We have 2 episodes left before the season comes to an end, so it's definitely worth binge watching if you have not been watching it yet. It's a great show. It's a murder mystery that is broken up into these like 2 episode parts. And we sort of get, the story sort of recycles and we get a whole bunch of new information every 2 episodes. And I love that format. So definitely looking forward to tomorrow's episode. Thank you both for coming on here and sharing your experience. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are watching live and those who will be watching this later on. Anna, before we go, do you have any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Just that, it's a great show. We had a great time working on it, and it's perfect for Christmas. So, highly recommend.
Absolutely. Again, thank you to Anna, Tierney, Julian, Bailey. On behalf of all of us, stay safe and stay walking. And Merry Christmas, as this will be our last show before Christmas. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Thanks, John.
No problem.
Thank you so much, John. Bye.
Bye.